He's a 4-time world champion. He's spent more than 230 weeks as the world number one. And yet, behind the trophies and rankings lies something rarer, a depth of character, calm, and perspective that defines Ali Farag far more than his dominance ever could. Squash is unlike any other racket sport. Two players sharing the same space, battling inside a glass box under bright lights in iconic locations. It's fast, physical, and fiercely personal. And yet, with that intensity, Ali brought something rare, a mindful precision, a calm within the chaos, an ability to play with freedom and humility even while carrying the weight of expectation. In this conversation, we go beyond the numbers. We explore the mind behind the mastery. Ali opens up about the invisible side of high performance, how he relates to nerves rather than resists them, how he carries the burden of expectation without being crushed by it, and how he stays grounded through both triumph and adversity. He takes us back to his early days in Cairo, to his formative years at Harvard with mentor Mike Way, and into the unseen process that built one of the most complete athletes our sport has ever known. We talk identity, composure, ego, acceptance, and the art of performing when things don't go to plan. And in the end, we touch on legacy, what it truly means to measure success, not by trophies or rankings, but by who you become through the pursuit itself. This is a conversation about mastery, humility, and the quiet courage it takes to remain yourself in a world of expectation. This is Ali Farag.
Ali Farag! Don't ask for people to take it easy on you. You have to earn it yourself. I always say the biggest gift anyone can give to someone else is to give them belief. Sometimes you're in a world of everything is blocked, everything is so hard, the court is so narrow for myself and so wide for my opponent. Where am I going to put the ball? The referee is against me. One click of acceptance, you get into a very different positive world that, oh, things are going well, and if I do this now, step by step, I'm going to get out of it. So acceptance is such a key word. You have to know very well who you are as a person, with the good and the bad. I'm Ali Farag. I'm a husband, and now I'm a father. I'm a responsible person. I was a good son to my parents. I'm a good servant of Allah. I'm a good husband to my wife. I'm a good father to my kids. And I'm not a perfect one. I'm trying to be a good one in all of these ones. I'm not even good enough in all of them. As this is what really makes me feel like my purpose of life is try to be good in all those kind of stuff. Yes, being good to the society means to do your best in your field of work. And that means that you want to be the best you can be.
Ali Farag, welcome to the next episode of the podcast series. So chuffed we could sit down and have this conversation today. I think a good place to kick off with, and I was going to start right at the beginning, but you told me such a cool little story about what's behind your head at the moment. With Harvard logo, I saw it straight away. It's just for the sake of the listeners, would you mind repeating that story? Because I think it's absolutely beautiful.
Absolutely, but I have to kick it off by just saying how happy I am to be with you again. I remember having a session with some of your kids 3-4 years ago, probably during COVID, and I was fascinated by your work, and I still am. So I'm very happy to be here. Very curious to hear your thoughts about the players and how they think, and this very complex organ of ours, the mind. And I very much look forward to the conversation. Yeah, this is a very special story to my heart, to Noor's heart. So basically, I obviously went to Harvard for 3 years, and the center court was getting renovated during our wedding. Or right before our wedding. So Mike Way and Haley Mendez's family, which was the closest family, and they still are to me during my times in the US, they decided to take the central area of the court when they were renovating the flooring and repaint it with Harvard, obviously because I spent so much time on this court, but also happened to be the court on which Noor won the World Junior Championships in 2011. So it's a very special court for us. And obviously with the H logo as well. Once I had this office in my house, I saw nothing but this logo right behind me, and I see it every single day. So I love it.
Beautiful. And this is just more to my curiosity here. I know when you were playing on the tour, you had the Harvard logo at the top of your shirt, and I think you wore it very proudly. Just what was the whole purpose and reason behind that? Like, why did you do that?
It just happened naturally. It's a place that meant so much to me, and it still does. And they've given me so much as a person to grow and to mature and to be a more accepting person towards others and towards other cultures and towards myself. And I just felt I haven't done enough to thank them. And it just felt, it's not only a feeling of gratefulness, it's a feeling of pride as well. To wear the logo that has obviously Harvard speaks for itself, but personally, it's given me so much, and I just did it. And I see a lot of other players doing it as well, whether it be Harvard. And I get angry when it's not Harvard, but no, honestly, it's brilliant that a lot of NCAA and Ivy schools are moving towards the professional career as well, because I think it's very important for our sport. So I've always loved it, and I love seeing it, people still doing it.
No, that's really cool. And it is nice to see a few of them floating around. And yeah, I don't actually work directly with any of the Harvard players, but some of the rivals that are on the
Yes,
I work with them.
absolutely. Yeah.
So let's hit the rewind button for a second. What first drew you to squash? Growing up in Cairo, what do you remember about those early years, those early memories of squash for you?
I remember them very well because of how much passion I had towards the game without anyone forcing it on me. You always read all those books and you listen to all those podcasts. You have to find your passion, you find your calling, and then find what feels to others like work, and it feels like for you like play. And that's how it felt playing squash from a very early stages. My dad used to play just on a friendly basis with his friends and just to stay healthy, stay fit. And then my brother was very talented in all different sports from a very young age. And he could hit the ball from the age of 2 or 3. And actually his son, God bless him, is growing now and he's almost 3. He also is very talented. So I can see what my parents saw in my brother. Anyway, so he was playing and I would sneak in between lessons and just hit a few balls. And then, as I said, I had a bit of talent. I had a lot of passion. And a year later or something, I started taking lessons myself. And then I don't remember a day or a period where squash wasn't a big thing in my life. I remember begging my parents to go to the club, begging my parents not to leave the club. It was never really forced on me. And that's such a lucky but beautiful feeling at the same time.
And just for timeline's sake, I think it probably was, obviously Ahmed Barada really set the scene, right? But I'm assuming, was it Ahmed Shabana that you were looking up to at that point, or was it Barada?
Barada. So it was in the late 1990s. Barada won the World Juniors in 1994. And then he started playing professionally. And then maybe late 90s, if I remember correctly, he reached the final of the World Championships in front of the Pyramids in 99. And that was when I was 7. And that's when we were really starting. And you would either there wasn't lots of satellite channels at the time. It was 4 or 5 different channels. And the main channel, whenever Barada was playing, especially in Egypt, he would be on the main channel. So either the 4 of us, my parents and myself and my brother, would be sitting behind the TV, cheering him on and being fascinated, starstruck, as you would say, even from behind the TV, or my dad would take us all the way to the Pyramids. And I'd never been to the Pyramids as a visitor until maybe the age of 20 or 24. I don't remember the exact time, but I remember going there for the squash tournament, just to watch Barada. And it was such a unique feeling that got me hooked even more into the sport. And I aspired to be like him one day. And so, he definitely kicked it off for all of us.
Did you get to speak to him as a junior?
I did. And so obviously, as I grew older, I got to know him a little bit better. And every time I see him, there's still this kind of, I wouldn't say starstruck, but this is Ahmed Barada. There's still this feeling. And when I retired, I sent a few messages to people that really meant a lot to me. And even though we never really interacted, he was one of the people that I really felt like I needed to thank him, because he got the ball rolling for all of us. And he was a role model to all of us. And I remember I used to play for Heliopolis Club growing up. And he would come and play some practice matches with other players or some of the coaches. And I remember one day, it was such a silly joke. And he told me, "Hey, what's your name?" And I said, "My name is Ali." He said, "Do you drink your milk every day to be strong?" And I went back home to my parents. "Ahmed Barada, talk to me." And it was such a great feeling. As a kid, you see nothing but the stars. And so he was very nice as well to me. When I met him when I was older, I told him that story and we laughed about it and we had a good chat about it.
Yeah, but the important question, Ali, did you go drink the milk? Come on, I want to know.
Of course, for the next week, I did nothing but drink milk because Barada told me.
That's cool. That's starstruck as a junior. And obviously we'll probably get into this at some point, but that factory line that keeps getting reproduced, the men, the women's game, I'm hoping that someone from the sporting world, the Sports Illustrated, pick up on this and write books on it, because it is actually such an incredible story. You're a part of it, living through it, and what's happening with that factory line. And obviously there's a few little maybe glitches, if we can call it that, and we might get into that as we talk. But yeah, I really love that. But still looking through the lens of your junior career, I'm interested to know maybe some of those toughest lessons or learning points that maybe shaped how you think about the game when you started competing as a pro, because there's so much stuff within the juniors that they get exposed to. But does anything stand in your mind about those toughest lessons that you learned?
Yes, I've learned a lot of tough lessons. And I think I remember from the very, very young age, I was very competitive. And as you said, it comes with its own good, but it comes with the glitches as well. My very first coach, at the end of the half-hour session or an hour session, we would play games, and he wouldn't take it easy on me. He would beat me. Obviously, he would take it a bit easy so that there is the game, but he would end up beating me. And I kept on crying, and do you think I'm Ahmed Barada? You should take it easy on me. And from a very young age, my parents told me, never feel sorry for yourself. Don't ask for people to take it easy on you. You have to earn it yourself. And that was a very good lesson from a very young age. And then at the age of 12, I must say, I was number 1 seed for the British Junior Open. And as it's renowned as pretty much the World Championships for the younger age groups. And it was really a dream to win it. And I was supposed to win it. And then I ended up drawing one of the Pakistani players. And without getting into too much detail, I thought I was hard done by for one reason or another. And I was crying like crazy for the rest 3 days. I lost in the quarterfinals, and we don't leave until the day after the final. So that's 3 days. And I remember I would not leave the room. I would be crying, and my mom was there with me. And one of the coaches that I still keep very dearly in my heart were there to try and ease the times. But I was not taking any of it. I was very angry, and I had a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, really. And again, it was a very important lesson from my mom. My mom, just for a background here, she founded a human development company at the age of 19 or in 1999, before a life coach was a thing. So she's very wise on her own, but then also she learned a lot through her work, and she passed it on to us. And at the time, that was 2005, she'd been 6 years into her work. And I was playing the victim card, as we all do, right? I see how hard my life is, and I'm always the one hard done by. My mom obviously, she was very compassionate with me and very empathetic and all that kind of stuff, but she never accepted that I'll play the victim card. This is not the way we go around it. Go and train harder and come back, even if you're hard done by. If the gap is, let's say you're 50-50, and because he's taking something to his advantage, made it 60-40, then go work harder that you are at 60-40. When he does something that is, let's say, unethical or whatever, it's still 55-45. This is the way we go around it. We don't go around and complain and feel sorry for ourselves. That was a very good lesson that I loved, and I've taken it with me until the very last minute of my career. And then the last one I remember very fondly now, actually, but was a very hard time at the time. It was during the secondary school times, where I was really, my parents are very, very right when it comes to build the priorities. Academics first, and then sports second. But sports was very important to them. And then I was doing the IGCSE system, the British system for secondary school. And it was quite tough. And I had to play with other players that didn't necessarily take academics as seriously. And I started losing to players that I wasn't used to losing to. And this is when I gave up. I completely gave up. And I told my parents were abroad at the time for a family trip. And I told my brother that this is it for me. Let's call it a day. I don't want to play that sport anymore. And then he was only 18 and a half or 19 at the time. And he told me, I'm going to take you on. I believe in you. And we're going to achieve our dream together, which was to win the World Junior Championships at the time. And that was a huge turning point in my life. I always say the biggest gift anyone can give to someone else is to give them belief. And he gave me the belief, not by, and I want to be respectful here to the American culture, but I've lived in the US, and the fake belief is actually quite a dangerous one. You're fabulous. You're fantastic. You've played great today. That's not the type of belief. He was very honest with me, but I saw in his eyes that he saw the belief in me that I can achieve that dream. And that gave me belief instantly. And then we worked together on the tools that can turn that belief into reality. And yeah, that was another great. So those were the 3 main lessons I can remember. Obviously, there were plenty others, but those are the 3 main ones I can remember for now.
Yeah, beautifully put. I want to pull on a couple of threads there that I think will be very interesting for the listeners. I know a lot of parents listen to the show as well. So I want to just tag the parents for a second, because in the research that I've done and looked at, it's that there's almost like that quad and where the most flourishing athletes work is that high demand but high support quadrant. And it sounds like you got that balance right. What message do you have for parents that maybe have the high demand but don't then give that support? It sounds like your mom got that beautiful balance of, here's the non-negotiables, here's our minimum operating procedures, But hey, if you do stumble and fall, you've also got the support and the safety net as well. How could you help people understand that high demand, high support technology there?
I'm not well equipped to answer that question yet because I haven't been a parent to a competitive athlete yet. Obviously, my daughter plays sports here and there at the age of 4, but it's nowhere near competitive yet. So my parents are better equipped to answer this question. And I've spoken about my mom a lot, but my dad was also and still is obviously very wise about it. They would tell me off when they needed to. They would take me under their wing and caress me or if that's the word, I'm not sure if it's the right word, or give me a hug when I needed to. And it didn't have to do with the results. It had to do with my attitude. They were always focusing on the attitude. They had very high demands. But they also, if I lost, they had great support. Like, you lost today, you did your best. Let's move on. Let's learn from your mistakes. And more important than learn from your mistakes, let's look at your strengths and make them even better, because people keep on dwelling on the mistakes so much that they keep, after every tournament, one mistake shows up, we work on that mistake. And then another mistake shows up, we work on that mistake. And then you forget what your strengths are. And then you don't know what your identity is. At the end of the day, we're going to talk about this, I'm sure, at some point. The identity is the most important thing for any athlete and for any person. You need to know your strengths very well, which is not something easy to get to, but it's a trial and error until you know it very well. And then you work on that identity. So back to your question, my parents were the perfect balance between demand and support.
And maybe this is a natural link now, because I know your time at Harvard was incredibly special. Mike Way, a second father figure, those are my words, maybe not your words. What influence did he have on your life, both in regard to a squash player, but also the human being aspect?
Let's talk about the human being aspect, because it translates onto court. I was going to say a statement that's not right, but you can be a good or a great squash player without being a good person. Let's not say a great person, but a minimum standards of being a good person. And I am, by nature, a very critical person, very judgmental person towards others, not towards myself. If my parents held me up to very high standards from a very young age, and if anyone else wouldn't do the same, I would look down at them. Honestly speaking, and I still do sometimes, which is not right, but at least now I understand that it's not right. Back in the day, I was doing it willingly, and I always thought that I was right. And I remember very well, I was playing a match in college. My opponent didn't even do anything. He didn't even cross the line. I thought he crossed the line, and I gave him a very bad attitude, a very arrogant attitude. And Mike took me in his office. Mike never tells you off or never really yells at you or any of that. But we had a very long conversation about how I need to be more compassionate with other people, more accepting to their actions. Sometimes the actions are coming out of unintentionally, first and foremost, but even if intentionally, because they've had bad things on their day, they've had bad upbringing or whatever it may be. And that clicked something in me that made me a lot more. I wanted the whole world to be perfect around me. And I'm not perfect, and no one is going to be perfect. And so that helped me big time. Mike is the most compassionate I've ever seen. Really. He's been through a lot of situations in front of my eyes that anyone else would take so personally. He never does. He understands where that person comes from and why did he or she take that action. And he never took it personally. And every time I would knock on his door and say, look at who did that and how did he do that, blah, 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 he would calm me down, and he would always remind me that this is not intention. Something about Mike, you just have to, I know you know him a little bit, but you just have to live with Mike to understand how brilliant of a person he is to be around.
And staying with that, is something I just jotted down as you were talking there, and this could lead us in a whole interesting direction. Can you be compassionate and a high performer? Because I think sometimes these two things get put on a separate end of a continuum going, no, high performance, you're serious, you're professional, you're locked in. And like all of the inverted commas, soft skills of acceptance, compassion, gratitude, almost get relegated very quickly because it's like high performance, success, status, ego outweigh the compassionate side. And looking at your career, I think you were able to pull the different levers at different times. How does high performance and all of those skills of compassion exist together, in your opinion?
Yeah, this is a very tough question, but also a very easy question. I don't know how to put that. They do contradict each other sometimes. You want to be polite on court, but you also don't want to be super kind. That especially when you play with a friend, for example, if you feel so much for them, you forget to focus on yourself. So they do contradict themselves sometimes, but for the most part, they actually do complement each other big time. For example, when I play with Jesse, let's say Jesse is an unethical player, right? And I play with him. If I have so much anger towards him, it's going to channel such negative sentiments within me, and there is no chance you can play with negative sentiments. Or sometimes, yes, I'm going to channel this negative sentiment into anger, and the anger, I'm going to channel it into a lot of drive and motivation and all of that. But you can only do that so many times in your career. It's going to get the better of you. The cliche movie scene between Rocky and his son, no matter how hard you're going to be, life is going to be harder than you. Yes, you can beat it once, twice, but there is no chance you're going to beat it every single time. It's going to knock you down. The better way to go around it is to understand where that situation comes from. And the way I put it, I'm sorry, I'm going to get into something a little bit philosophical, but this is how I saw it. So when you talk about lots of my rivals throughout my career, I would rate them, lots of them, I would rate them as mentally stronger than I am. By that I mean is, if the capacity, let's say we can quantify it, it's out of 10. My mental strength is an 8.5 out of 10, which is still quite high. I would give myself a high number. Some people were 9.5 out of 10. Nobody is 10. 9.5 out of 10. How I used to stay with them is that so there are two sides of the equation. The equation, one side is your capacity. The other side is everything that piles up to add to that capacity, right? So let's say Jesse has done something back to me on court. This is going to be a 1. And then how well my opponent is playing, that's a 3. I didn't sleep well today, that's a 5. If those things keep on piling up until they overflow the 8.5, it's going to get the better of me. Be as simple as that. What I was good at, or what I try to always work on, is this side of the equation. Yes, I try to get my threshold higher than 8.5, but if Jesse did something bad to me, I was compassionate towards him and I didn't see it as anything. So that one doesn't become part of the equation. If the referee that has a bad call, it doesn't get into my head. It's not another half or another one that adds in that side of the equation. He's had a bad call. Who hasn't had bad calls? If I'm in his seat, I would have even more bad calls. So I've forgotten about that already. Those things were my main focus. That they did a lot, but I would say less than other players. They were never overflew or overrode my capacity, if that makes sense. So back to your question, your compassion takes that side of the equation a lot slower, that it makes you a better player and a more calm player.
Yeah, no, I love that. It makes complete sense to me, and I'm gonna keep pulling on a couple of threads there. I know I learned this from you when we had our last in-depth chat. Was I think acceptance is a big part of your life, right? And you talk very eloquently about it. So I'd love you to expand on that. I'm sure this comes into it. And I love the Bruce Lee be like water type attitude is, hey, if you can be like water, you can find a way. How do you let go of the on control, and how do you focus on what you have within your control? But also acceptance, how does ego play into this? Because I think there's an interesting overlap here between ego and acceptance.
100%. The whole thing about acceptance is that you have a lot of ego that you don't want to accept it. That's the whole thing behind it, right? I have a lot of ego. Why is this player outplaying me now? I have a lot of ego. Why is this player not playing ethically against me? Why did my wife not treat me well before I went on court today? Like all of these little things, they're mostly in your head as well. There is a great philosopher, Egyptian philosopher, who was the vice president of Google at one stage of his career, and he decided that he wasn't happy. He's called Mo Gaudat. And
I've read his books. I love his books, by the way. Yeah,
it's here back in my library of books, and he's got 4 now. I've only read 1, unfortunately. It's called Soul for Happy, for anyone interested to read it. It's fascinating, and I've listened to his podcasts and stuff like that. And he says the cycle or the series of questions towards happiness or towards non-anger is basically, if something happens, first of all, is it true? Because sometimes you make things in your head that are not true. Today, Noor has not responded to me the way I would want her to respond to me. Noor doesn't love me anymore. You just make up this huge conclusion in your head that is Not true whatsoever. She just kissed me in the morning and gave me a hug in the morning. But because of one bad, the referee gave a bad call. This referee is against me today. It is not true. So this is the first question. Is it true? Sometimes it is true. Let's say, I am tired. It's not true. No, it is true. Okay, I'm fatigued now. Okay. The second question is, what can I do about it? If I'm tired, maybe I need to change my game plan. Maybe I need to take some time between each shot. I want to lift it up. Maybe I want to go for shorter rallies. So that's okay. That's question number 2. Question number 3, it might be true. There might be nothing you can do to solve it. What can I do despite it? So let's say I come up against, let's say, Jesse, who blocks me out, right? Is it true? He does block me out. Is there anything I can do about it? No, because I'm not the referee, right? The third part, what can I do despite its presence? What I can do is play a shot that is far away from him so that he doesn't have the opportunity to take his space. And so those are the 3 kind of questions that I always ask to accept what I have in front of me. There is nothing in life that those 3 questions are not going to get you through. This is what I mean by acceptance, right? If you accept that, if you go through those series of questions, you're going to accept. Obviously, it's easier said than done. I'm here sitting in the AC and talking a very nice conversation with you. In real life situations, I lose it, and I lose it a lot of times, and I still do at home, on court, wherever it may be. But when you sit back and calm down, this is always the way I try to think about things.
Yeah, again, very eloquently put. And it all comes down to what I heard something great the other day, because I've always struggled to teach acceptance in my world. Because I think sometimes to a highly competitive athlete, they go, so do we just have to accept it? Do we have to just shrug our shoulders? And I'm like, but this guy said something beautiful. Acceptance doesn't mean approval. That I thought that was really powerful. It's,
very powerful.
You might not like it. You don't approve of the situation, but are you going to compound it and make it worse by fighting that thing? Or are you going to have to accept, course correct, micro adjustments, and then go down that path a little bit? And I just thought that you described that, it's almost, hey, you can either spend your energy fighting that thing, or you can redirect your attention and energy into something that's going to nudge you in the right direction.
Yes, absolutely. And so often when you start accepting it, you realize something about it that is actually very positive. Meaning, Shabana told me that once when he was the technical director of the national team and he was traveling with us, and in between games, one of the players were using some strategy or some antics. It might not have been something unethical at all, but I thought, oh my God, this is going to be such a tough challenge. And I was on the verge of not accepting it. And it's going to get into my head and get into panic mode. And he said one thing that not only made me accept it, but made me very excited about the challenge. He said, Ali, listen, if he does that, know that this is his very last resort. If you get over this one, he's done. And not only did I accept it, it made it something that I'm very excited about. You know what I mean? So it triggers something in you sometimes, that acceptance, that it gets you in a world. Sometimes you're in a world of everything is blocked. Everything is so hard. The court is so narrow for myself and so wide for my opponent. Where am I going to put the ball? The referee is against me. One click of acceptance, you get into a very different positive world that, oh, things are going well. And if I do this now, step by step, I'm going to get out of it. So acceptance is such a key word, as you said.
What you've said there is interesting, just in the psychological world, that is what Shabana presented there to you. He actually activated a part of your brain that's the challenge mindset versus the threat mindset. So now you see this new obstacle as is a very famous Stoic saying that the obstacle is the way, right? It's actually a book called The Obstacle is Way, beautiful book. And like that, like when you presented something like that in the way, you actually activate a different neural pathway compared to, oh, this is such a threat to my status, my ego.
Yes.
And it's like when you can start training your mind, in my opinion, to look at the world through a lens that nudges you towards the challenge part of the equation versus the threat part.
100%. And similar to that is the fear versus danger as well. Sometimes you're fearing something, and that is such a bad thing. But when you recognize the danger, that is very important. And then you go through the danger and see how you're going to deal with it. But to fear something, usually you fear your ego. And ego is basically your status within the society. What are people thinking about me now? Oh, I'm going to lose all those ranking points and everything that I've put in, the effort I've put in, and my parents and my coaches have put in. I'm going to throw it in the garbage now by not trying my hard. Fear is such a bad word to approach a match with, or approach any big obstacle in your life with. But danger is very important to be honest with yourself and recognize the dangers, the obstacle within your pathway. But okay, how am I going to deal with it? That's, as you said, the shift in mindset that is very needed before stepping into any hard obstacle in your life.
Yeah, I'm gonna go down that rabbit hole of fear with you now for a second, because sometimes this is my little cheeky tactic. I tell people, I say, I'm an alien. I've just turned up in the world. I've got no idea what sport is. Describe squash to me in one sentence. And what I'm trying to get them to do is tell me it's a rectangular room with a rubber ball, 2 humans and 2 rackets, and it's who's trying to hit a rubber ball around a room better than the other person.
Yeah.
And when you just deconstruct like that and go, so you what are you so afraid of? Is your life going to change? Are you not going to have the same family? Are people not going to love you anymore? And actually, when you just speak to them bit by bit, it deconstructs it. That's my little silly method, but
It is a very important method.
thank you.
Yes.
So how did you navigate fear? I can imagine at different periods of your life at Harvard with Mike Way, maybe forming your identity versus you as like a 25-year-old versus you as just before you're retiring. How did fear and the management of that evolve through you? How did that work?
No, I do have a lot of fear in my life, and I still do. And whoever tells you that I never fear anything is probably lying, and it's his ego talking. I do fear a lot of things. A lot of matches I stepped on court and I was shaking is probably an exaggeration, but I didn't feel my right self just stepping on court. I would ride through the storm. I don't like to walk away from it. Okay, I'm afraid. Let's walk through the storm. What's the worst that's going to happen? As you said, I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose easily. I've had 4 or 5 matches of my career I can think of very clearly now that I barely hit a shot or I moved very badly because of fear, absolute fear. But then no matter how many times people are going to tell you from experience, you have to experience it to be able to get out of it, right? But the way Tim Harkness put it, and I always loved it, every time I step into something that I think is bigger than me or I've never been through before, what makes you fearless is when you've been through something before, you are less fearful of it. But if something comes up like the first World Championships final, the first appearance against one of the greats like Gautier or Nick Matthew, all of these fears that come with you, yes, you might have not been through something exactly similar, but you've been to something of the same idea. You might have never played a World Championships final before, but you played a final before. You might have never played a final before, but you've played a match before. You might have never played a match before, if it's your debut on the professional sports screen, but you played a junior match before. You might have never played a junior match before, but you played a practice match before. There is something always you can draw upon to make you feel better about the situation. Does that mean that you're going to go there and know everything from the first? Because also speaking about that, I was very mistaken to start my career thinking that I was going to be the end goal today. I've watched Rabagi, I've watched Nick Matthew, I've watched Rami Ashur, I've watched all the greats. I know exactly how I should deal with things, and I should be dealing with them same way they've dealt with it, or they're dealing with it now at the peak of their career without going through it myself. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to experience it to be able to add a layer of experience one over the other until you get there. Obviously, you're never going to be Nick Matthew, you're never going to be Rabagi, you're going to be yourself, but you add layers from one player and from another, not even in the squash field, to get to your peak at some point.
What I'm hearing you say there is this idea of, it actually comes from the world of phobias, how you overcome a phobia. So if you're fundamentally scared of a spider, you don't put a spider in your hand on the first day. You have it in a box on the far side of the room. And then next week, it's like halfway, then it's on the table, then maybe it's the hand in the box. And what maybe Tim Harkness said, and a good mutual friend, shout out to Tim, is that idea that, was he getting you to frame up that next big thing is just the next challenge that's going to get you prepared for the challenge after that, in a way? Is that kind of what you're saying there? Because I'd love to pick on that for a sec.
No, not necessarily, but he will just pick on the danger. What exactly threats, or what are the strengths or the obstacles that you're gonna face today? Whether it be, let's talk about tangible obstacles. If you talk about your fear and all that kind of stuff, there is nothing you can do about. Let's talk about your opponent having a very good forehand. Okay, we're going to deal with that by not playing on that side. Your opponent being so fit. Okay, I'm going to play shorter rallies, or I'm going to play at a slower pace so I don't get tired. You haven't stepped well today. Okay, let's have a good coffee before. You look at each obstacle and you see how I can get rid of it And then once you start focusing on these things, automatically your mind, instead of being occupied with your fear, it's occupied with the process, with the performance. And then obviously, again, this is all theoretical, but the more you practice those kind of stuff, the more they become reality. And the one thing Mike told me before, when I was still at Harvard, and he said, Ali, you never want to finish your college career. At the time, I didn't know that I was going to play professionally. You don't want to finish your college career not have tried every single thing. It's the same as I'm not going to practice my drop shots ever in my career. You're going to finish your career really regretful of never giving yourself the best chance of winning matches by not practicing your drop shots. The same way when it comes to the mental aspect of the game. You want to practice every single thing. And what people believe when it comes to the mental side of the game is that one session with Jesse, one session with Tim is the magic button. Here I am. I've done it. I've done it with them. I didn't really feel anything. Of course, if the first day of your life, you're going to practice drop shots, you're not going to master them. It's going to take years and years. I played 25 years of my career, 27, however long it was. And I was practicing drop shots every single day. I still never mastered them. So it's the same way that you have to really focus on your mental training. And I was very averse to that. Mike is writing a book and it's in the editing stage now. And the first chapter, the introduction, is all about me coming to Harvard and telling him, Mike, you know what? In Egypt, we just play squash. We don't think about that. And it's true. And it took me a year and a half to buy into the program. And so I know I've taken another direction from the question, but it's a very important point for people to understand how important the mental side of the game is to be able to perform at your very best.
No, totally. That's why I do what I do on a daily basis.
Yes.
Because at a very much less level, the mental game completely ruined me. My identity, the fear of failure, what people thought of it. It just was such a heavy weight, and I was never able to unshackle myself from that weight. So figure out what I wasn't able to solve and try and give it back to a few people. And
absolutely, yeah.
When it comes to practicing the mental game, it's such a broad field. And you told me a beautiful story about visualization. I think Mike would get you on the bleachers and visualize. You're like, what is this rubbish? But then when it actually happened and you're like, oh, actually, the response to that scenario, I had lived it in my mind before. I'd love for you to tell us about visualization, but not just that. What is practicing the mental game to Ali Farag?
Yeah, it's such, as you said, it's such a broad question that we can talk about it for years. What is training squash for you? It's like training your shots, it's training your footwork, it's training your strength, it's everything, right? So with the mental training, and again, there are different schools, but for me and how Mike likes to dissect it is this: you've got 3 different mindsets that you really need to train to be able to get to your very best. 1 is the foundation mindset, 2 is the training mindset, 3 is the performance mindset. Meaning, going back to our point, you really need to know what your identity is. Who am I? What are my strengths? I've talked to a lot of players on the tour randomly as competitors or now as a retired person with them, how they think about their game. And I always feel like they're working on their weaknesses. And I remember from a very young age, Nick Matthew said something that resonated, and it's been pretty much the motto of my training every single day, is that you need to make your strength your super strength. This is your main goal. I want to be unplayable at a phase or at a way of playing that nobody can come close. If I keep on thinking, okay, my forehand was never the best on tour, and I always knew this was my weakness, and at some point, Paul Cole exploited it, and I obviously had to go back and work on it. There is nothing wrong on working with mistakes. Not only there is nothing wrong, you would be foolish not work on your weaknesses. But your main focus should be on your strength, and your strength becomes your identity. And your identity, it's a very long process, but your identity is based on 2 things: your unique genes or your character and your physical traits. For example, I remember they were saying it in a funny way, but it resonated with me big time. Tariq had beaten someone at the British Open, maybe 2017, 2018, Tariq Moment, and he was being interviewed by Jenny Dunkel. And she asked him, why you're the player who plays to the front corners the most on the PSA World Tour and you become world champion doing that? Why is that? He said, because when I was younger, I had a very small physique compared to my peers, and I couldn't outpower them. So I had to outsmart them and move that big physique of them to the front corners, and I was light enough to be able to back it up and to cover the next shot. So his identity was rooted out of his physical traits. And also, it has to do with your character traits, meaning I'm someone who's not a risk taker. I cannot force myself to be a risk taker on court. My wife is the opposite, and you can see it in our lives. She's a risk taker. She's going to base her identity on that. Yes, we're going to tame her risk actions. We're going to tame my risk aversion and try to help me be a little bit more attacking or whatever it may be. But we're going to base our identity based on our physical traits, our character traits. That's the first thing. So that's the foundation mindset. You have to know very well who you are as a person, with the good and the bad. There is a list of adjectives that Mike lets you go through it, and you can imagine a lot more adjectives. You don't have to go to get them from the list, and see the two that you're really good at and the two that you're really lacking, and you write them somewhere on a bracelet, in your pocket, on your phone wallpaper, whatever it may be, and you start thinking every single day that those two I really need to focus on and hammer on being the best at them, and those two, and critical and judgmental were my two. That's why I always remember critical and judgmental were my two, and responsible and controlling were my good ones. Controlling comes with its own negatives. You can ask Noor about that and how controlling I am, but that's a conversation for another day.
Your marriage therapist.
Exactly. No, on a serious note, okay, I'm a controlling person. Then control was such a big part of my game. I had to be in control of every single shot. That's why I don't take risks, because a risk exploits your movement. Okay, and maybe it held me back a little bit at some points in my career. So I'm not saying it's great, but because it held me back, it does not mean that tomorrow I need to change it. It's going to take away my strength as well. So you have to always find this balance. I'll give you I'm sorry, my answer is very long, but this is a very important.
This is amazing.
This is a very important when you're saying what mental training is. So as you know me, I was never the most attacking sports player on the tour. I always was volleying a lot. I was setting up the tee, but I would always play 99% of the times the safest shot. And again, until I wear my opponents down. It comes to points where players are beating me before I can wire them down, because I'm not taking opportunities enough, which is true. There is nothing wrong. Back to the more Gauta's questions, it is the true statement. Come then a new coach or a family member or someone I trust dearly. I don't really listen to the people on the social media or whatever, and we might discuss that later, but I very much listen to the people around me that I trust very much. And I trust them, and they come and say, you need to be a little bit more attacking. I don't disagree, but we're not going to focus on that. And I become an attacking person, and I lose my main strength, which is the control, right? So you have to always find the balance of be innovative and trying to improve yourself without losing your identity. So back to your point, the mental training is you need to define what your identity is. And it comes with trial and error. It doesn't come overnight. It comes with scripting. And Mike would, as it sounds to people, he would make me script. I'm Ali Farag. I'm a husband. And now I'm a father. I'm a responsible person. I'm a controlling person. Sometimes I cross the line with my judgments, with as little as those things, to just get them ingrained in your head and make you believe that I'm a really this responsible, controlling person that no one is going to get. And by responsible, by the way, it helps you a lot on court as well, because you care so dearly about every single point. There are other players that are not as, I wouldn't say careless, it's an exaggeration, but the point is not as precious for them as it is for me. And that was my strength as well. And it comes from my character traits. It has nothing to do with me stepping on court yet. And then that I would script a lot. Before every match, I used to, the last 3-4 years of my career, I was not doing this as much, which is not right, but I struggled with motivation sometimes and stuff like that. But again, this is a conversation for another time. So that I would script before every match. I start with, I'm Ali Farag. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a son to my parents, I'm a slave, I'm a servant to Allah, personal stuff. And then I'm a responsible person, my traits. And then it takes us to the training mindset or the performance mindset. The training mindset would be the remainder of the script. I didn't used to script a lot during training, and Mike was not happy about it, but I should have. Today, I need to work on such and such. Because so often we get on court or we go to training, we leave. What did we really work on? What did we really gain out of the practice? Nothing. I've just showed up. Sometimes showing up is important, because showing up in itself on a bad day is a positive, but not every single day. Some days you need to work on something. So I needed to script. Today, I'm going to be working on my volleys, my whatever it may be, my control, whatever it may be. So that's the second part. Scripting until it becomes an obsession. An obsession is a bad word when it comes to anything, because you don't want to be obsessed so that it takes over something else that might be a little bit more important. But don't ask someone to be as ambitious as they want to become world number one at any field of life, and they're not going to be obsessed. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And then the next one is the performance mindset. The beginning of the script would be the same, the foundation mindset script. And then the performance mindset would be I remind myself of who I am. I'm the best volleyer of the game. I don't like to use the best and worst. I'm a very good volleyer. I wear my opponents down. I move very well. And they might be arrogant, whatever they may be, but I don't show them to anyone. It's for me to make me believe in myself. This is the first part of the script. And the very last two lines would be my opponent and their strengths and how I need to negate that. And that would be and I have a clear idea now. I'm going to step on court. Now when I'm working with Yusuf Soliman, before every single match, we do the script verbally with each other. I call him and I ask him, how do you feel about today? And he starts saying, okay, Jesse plays that well and I need to negate that. No, Yusuf, let's stop here. Let's take a step back. Who are you? How are you going to play today? Who are you? How are you going to dictate your own game plan? Whoever it may be against. And then let's talk about Jesse's strengths and his weaknesses and how we're going to negate that. So that's basically my training every single day. Obviously, there are a lot of different other stuff, but the bigger picture, this was my go-to training, mental training, if I may say so.
Honestly, thank you so much for unpacking that, because I'm just sitting here, my confidence, I'm writing a great note. I'm going to be listening to that about 20 times. So what I'm hearing is, to speak back a little bit, and I'll pull on a thread here. You've got your foundational mindset, you've got your practice mindset, you've got your performance mindset. And what I really like, and that's part of how your identity is really rooted in those areas, and you've got different tools and ways of building each one of those. But as you were saying that, does it now come down to, I'm going to talk about the flow state here, and almost like letting go and using and trusting, because I suppose if you're building those foundations and those blocks along the way, you know yourself so well that the second guessing maybe disappears a little bit. You still have to move forward with nerves and fear and doubt. But the fact is that you're probably more likely to trust in the process, let go. You can be focused, but relax. You're not having to get involved with everything and force those things. Is that making a little bit of sense there? And how does the flow state and how does your ability to just go?
A lot of sense. There is a very famous saying that Mike has quoted from one of the books or one of the podcasts. The mind grabs hold of the strongest file in the subconscious mind. Meaning, when you are playing, thoughts are happening to you. You don't have the time to think, right? So you might have some downtime between points and you try to reset and take some breaths or close your eyes to gather your thoughts again. But so often, more often than not, actually, in panic modes, thoughts are happening to you. Okay, what are those thoughts? Those are thoughts in the subconscious mind. That mind is grabbing. You don't have the control over today, but you do have control over the deposits that you keep on putting in your subconscious day in, day out, until in the panic mode, instead of my mind grabbing hold from Mike likes to call it the oh my God file. Oh my God, I'm losing. Oh my God, look at what I've wasted. Oh my God, what is this decision from the referee? Oh my God, my parents are watching outside. Oh my God. There is the IQ file. And by IQ, it's not the typical IQ. It's the inner quiet file. The inner quiet. I've been here before. I know what to do. Now I'm Ali Farag, the responsible person, one of the best volleyers, blah, blah, blah. And then, so this is one part, is that the mind grabs hold of the strongest file in the subconscious mind. But then the second part, sometimes it's even stronger than you. As we said, it's going to get the better of you. You need to have catchphrases. Okay, mine was very obvious. Yallah was one that would always let me reset and get into the right frame of mind. but I had a lot of other ones internally. One of which is a very steady one. It translates to there. Ahe means here it is or there. I would say, Ali, ahe, just focus on this one single shot. And it's very simple. You think that I'll be coaching like an 8-year-old. Mine would be ahe. Ahe means hit the glass back. I hit the glass back. Just because when your things are crazy, it's so hard to be playing well in this non-flow state. You have to go back to the basics. Basics is the foundation of any game. Back corners. You've mastered that, step up and take the volley. You've mastered that, step up and take the volley and attack off the volley. After that, follow up on your attack, one by one. But in that non-flow state, it's impossible to go from a non-flow state into a flow state all of a sudden. It's a gradual change. And you need to catch yourself early. You need to catch yourself with a trigger. And my trigger was, Allah, that was the obvious one, but my trigger was, hey, now, do that, hit the glass, and so on and so forth. So it's a fascinating mind that you live in. People think that all we do is play 6 shots and run around each other. I have no doubt what I've done, my opponents have done, and maybe even better, to better themselves every single day, to be able to face the challenge that we face every single day on court.
So what I love about what you're saying here, it's actually the simplicity in the heat of battle, in the hottest fires, rather than trying to connect all these complex abstract ideas that you might be solving in training and that. You really refer to a lot of simple prompts and self-talk and instruction, right?
Yes. It's impossible to be thinking of, and I'm not saying it's the wrong school. I've listened to, you have discussions with your peers on tour. I've been together with them for 10 years. And some of them, they say, I think about that technique when I'm playing. And you have to have very simple instructions, 1 or 2 that are the main focus when you're playing. If you have too many instructions, it's going to blow you over. There is no chance you're going to get control over all of them. And again, back to the control side of me, I wanted to have 1 or 2 main ideas I'm thinking of on court that I'm referring to. Yes, the small details are very important, but once you get the 1 or 2 things right, you go in a flow state, and the flow state takes care of the small details. You know what I mean? But to get in the flow state, very rarely you play a full match in a flow state. Like how many matches in my career I can think of on one hand, on the whole of them, right? Yes, I've been in a flow state in a lot of chunks of matches, but for the whole match, I was competing with the top 30, top 50 players on tour every single day that are dedicating their lives to this sport. How come I'm not going to be outplayed at some parts of the match from the number 50 in the world, from the number 100 in the world? They dedicate their lives to this sport. Does not mean because I'm world number 1. The world number 1 is world number 1 because they accept that they're not going to be outplaying their opponents the whole time through. And my wife has struggled with that big time. After that season, she reached world number 3. She was behind Noor Shirbini and Ranim El-Walili. And all she could think of the following year was Noor Shirbini and Ranim El-Walili. And every time she would step on court with a lower ranked player, number 4 in the world or number 8 in the world, how come I'm outplayed by them? I should be number 3 by now. No, you're number 3 because you know how to deal with adversities and the times you're not in a flow state. So basically that's it. The flow state is very important, and that's what we strive to get to, but it's never going to be there the whole way through the match.
So you've obviously talked about the control aspect a lot, and I just want to ask you this. Where does perfectionism come in? Is this part of your character traits?
My dad.
Your dad?
My dad is a perfectionist, and it's one of his best traits that he is such a responsible person, such a caring person. Probably the one person in my life, may her soul rest in peace, his mom was the same, my grandma. If I give them a task, I know it's over. I don't have to follow up. I know it's over. But because of that, they expect everyone else to be the same. And they expect that from themselves all the time. And it feels like a prison. You're never going to be perfect. There is no one that is perfect. I'm not a huge fan of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but I've read his book and he was talking about that part. I know my downfalls, is that how you call it? I know my bad qualities, and there is no doubt I'm going to work on them, but I'm not going to come out there and pretend that I'm an angel. No one is an angel. No one is going to get everything. Elsewise, you're going to feel very tired. And you know what? I still have that trait in me that, again, is one of my strengths. And I'm not saying it's a problem, that it's a challenge, but I have to tame it again, because it keeps everyone around you. And this is where the judgmental side of me and the critical side of me is rooted out of. I give myself a hard time, and I give the people around me a hard time. How come you didn't do that task perfectly? And I've had my problems in my life because of it, but I've also had very good traits because of it.
I suppose that mental maturity and almost the emotional flexibility to know when perfectionism is nudging you towards something great and excellence, but then when is it becoming the anchor now? When and where is it slowing you down? And that's, as a young person, is very hard to know that, but the more experiences you have and the more times you get put on your ass because of it, hopefully you collect that data, that information, you sift it through your filter, and then you're a slightly more upgraded person the next time you're in that situation.
100%.
Yeah. Little tiny thought experiment here. I'm really interested in instant gratification. I think we live in a world where within 2 taps of this amazing glass thing we have in our pocket the whole time, we can get any song, any video, anything in the world. The dopamine hit can be very high and quick. And actually, mastery and excellence, as we know, takes a long time. No instant gratification, long delayed gratification. So whether it's you talking to yourself as a younger person, how would you give some advice, or even anyone listening, for those years of hard work, the grind, before any big results came? How would you try and encourage yourself to look through that?
Yeah, I was just talking in a summit the other day here in Egypt, and I've heard someone say it, and I built on it as well. There are no quick wins. And the problem with social media, and the problem with that glass thing in your pocket, on social media, a successful artist or a successful businessman or a successful athlete, and you think, oh, I'm going to be there. I'm going to go to the gym a week and I'm going to have the same shape as them. It's become, I don't know. It's, people don't realize how hard it is because of how easy they see it now. If you see someone that is well built in your entourage, you know how much they go to the gym, or they've been going to the gym for the past 10, 20 years, right? So you see how hard they had to work to get there. But because on social media, you see they got there without the whole process, it makes you think that it's easy. And then you look for quick wins very quick. And we touched upon that when it comes to mental training as well, right? I see Mohammed al-Shorbagy, such a great mental fighter. And he's been on tour, and he was world number 1 when I first joined the tour full time. He's there, and I start the tour. I lose. I have a bad loss. I call Noor. I don't have what it takes to be Mohammed al-Shorbagy and Nick Matthew. No, wait here. This guy didn't become Mohammed al-Shorbagy, and that guy didn't become Nick Matthew overnight. They went through a lot of hardships, 30 years, 20 years, however long in their lives to get there. And you're still in KG1. Don't expect to be there. And I had a fight with Noor because of those conversations, but she couldn't have been more. So quick wins do not happen. Do not happen. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's the whole Chinese bamboo tree analogy, which I like. You got to water it, nurture that soil. You don't see any growth, but when it does shoot above the surface, it can grow quick. But I just love the idea that the reason the bamboo tree can grow quick is because of the roots it's set that no one sees, the foundations, the identity you spoke about, knowing yourself, adapting, tweaking. But yeah, if you stop nurturing that soil, those roots die in the soil, don't they? And I love
100%, 100%. And one thing that might annoy a lot of people that are listening here, and I had a tough time, and I still do with my wife when I say it, she said I say it because I've already achieved what I've always dreamt of, is you can nurture it and you can do everything right, and it might not turn out to be a great bamboo. There is no doubt that you're going to get something great out of it, and you're going to get some reward at some point, but the reward might not be the one you're looking for, right? Because I've trained hard, yes, but I'm sure people have trained harder than me, smarter than me, with better guidance, and they didn't have the luck or the whatever the word is to achieve their dreams. And does not mean, but they've definitely gained a lot of things along the way, even probably more than I did. So because people think that if I do everything right, the reward is guaranteed. That's not the case. And that's what exactly the definition of sacrifice is. You sacrifice not knowing you don't sacrifice because I know something is going to happen. You sacrifice not knowing if the outcome is going to be good. But one thing is for sure, there is no way you might sacrifice and not get there, but there is no way you will not sacrifice and get there. That's a guarantee. Even if you have one quick win, it will never be a consistent set of wins.
There's a beautiful analogy that I use a lot. It's we all want to look at the view from the top of the mountain, right? But a mountaineer spends 99% of the time on the side of the mountain. Storms, difficulties, setbacks. The 1% of the time we glorify that so much. But if 99% is miserable and it's the person you become on the side of the mountain, it's not the person that you are when you're at the top looking at the view. And I just think it's such a powerful reframe that. But
it is.
It's hard, isn't it? Because I suppose that's what you sign up for in competitive sports. Zero guarantee, absolutely zero guarantee, knowing that I could, again, blood, sweat, and tears, every sacrifice under the sun. But I have to have this contract and negotiation with myself that, hey, if I don't achieve society's version of success, have I got my internal scoreboard successful? Is the definition of success maybe redefined from what the outside versus the inside?
And I'll tell you what, I'm 33 years of age and I've asked this question to myself throughout my whole life, and I still don't have a definition of success. I still do not. And society gives you a framework of success. Self, you read different books, you go through different feelings, and you feel like, oh, this might be success. Yes, there are certain things, family, being a good son, being a good husband. Yes, those are success doesn't happen without them. But is this success? I don't know. So to be chasing success and you have one idea of success is such a deep hole that because you get to world number one, you want another. You get another, you want four more. You get four, you want to be the greatest of all time. You get the greatest of all time. You're never going to be satisfied. So this is not success. There is no doubt that I know what not success is, but I don't know what success is yet. So this idea, and again, Noor hates that type of conversation with me because she thinks because I've done it, then it's a lot easier to say that. Yes, I understand that, but I've been there and I know that this is not the satisfaction that I'm looking for. Yes, it's made me very satisfied. It's a stamp of approval that what I've done in my life has been right. Because as we were just saying, there is no way someone will reach world number one without the sacrifices. So it's just a validation stamp. But if I hadn't got it, does not mean that I hadn't done everything right as well.
Yeah, and I've had this conversation with some of the players I work with. Actually, a couple that are not involved in squash. A golfer says this to me a lot. He's like, why do you keep showing me sound bites of Rory McIlroy or Bryson DeChambeau or whoever, Scotty Scheffler? They can talk from that privileged position about trust the process and enjoy the thing. And yeah, I'm always struggling with that idea that because someone's achieved it, and it's the chicken egg. Is it now because they've achieved this, they can talk about it, or it's because they've done these things that's helped them achieve it? I don't know. What do you think?
It's a chicken or the egg. I mean, there is no answer to the question, right? But I very much believe that most of the people that have achieved it we were all desperate, but they had the good combination between desperation and acceptance that I've signed this contract of sacrifice, incredible amount of sacrifice, incredible amount of investment, and I might not get there. If you have this balance between obsession, but also acceptance that it might never happen, some people were desperate and it did happen for them. I didn't have the acceptance elsewise, but I don't know. It's a very tough formula to get to.
Quick side note on that, and then I want to ask you this next question. But one of the best proverbs I heard, very simple: beyond mountains, there are more mountains. So when you reach the top of a certain mountain, all is the peak of the next mountain. And actually, for me, it just gives a nice way of a bit of a journey. So that's that bit. But I want to just pick on that thread that you said there. And again, without getting anything personal or naming names, but getting to achieving the thing, what society's version of a success is, but destroying a bunch of things along the way and actually doing it in a way that might not be ethical. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm interested to know that if an athlete turns up and goes, I just want the plaudits. I want the ranking, the name. I want people to think of me like this on a scoreboard and screw everything else. I'd just love to know your thoughts on that.
Good for them. For the 10 years that they're on top, if this is the real definition of success, they would feel very successful and very happy. Even that, I'm not sure of. There is a big void in themselves that they feel the non-acceptance of people and all of that. But this is not the point. Squash is a chapter, right? It's 10 years of your life. After those 10 years, how are you going to define yourself? I was the world number one. Today, what makes me feel satisfied, again, I'm not going to talk about successful because I don't know what the definition of success is for me. What makes me feel satisfied, I was a good son to my parents. I'm a good servant of Allah. I'm a good husband to my wife. I'm a good father to my kids. And I'm not a perfect one. I'm trying to be a good one in all of these ones. I'm not even good enough in all of them, as we all are. You can never be, as we said, perfect. But this is what really makes me feel like my purpose of life is try to be good in all those kind of stuff. Yes, being good to the society means to do your best in your field of work. And that means that you want to be the best you can be. But getting over or overriding the values that we were all brought in to live in a good society, I don't think it's the right thing. I don't think at least my parents got me in. Not that I don't think, I'm 100% sure my parents didn't get me into it because of it. It's, I told you, my parents were very big on attitude when you were younger, not necessarily results. And the attitude, if I had a bad attitude day, I wouldn't want to go back home because it was a rough day. And now with all the positive parenting books that are coming out, and you need to be lenient with your kids. And I have this conversation with my wife. I'm the more strict one out of the two of us. And sometimes she tells me, Ali, they're going to be peering you and they're going to be not telling you everything because of it. And I understand that. But there are certain lines that we should not cross. And I'm going to be telling them off, even if they're 2 years of age. And I'm not saying I'm right at all. But the way my parents did it with me, I think was the perfect balance. And I plan on doing the same and raise my kids the same. If somebody picks a different pathway, good for them if they're happy, but not for me. And I don't think I would raise my kids that way.
It so much comes down to core values, right? And
Yes.
it's the thing I'm always wrestling with, because it's sometimes a hard sell to a competitive athlete going, if we can define your core values and you can live in accordance with those core values consistently, we can actually let go of the outcome. We want to be the best. We want to get to the best of our ability, but actually the core values is more of the measurement tool rather than the scoreboard. And maybe with what we see in, whether it's all of modern sport, but some of the modern squash, it feels like some of those core values have been disintegrated, eroded, maybe not even brought up, because there's been examples and role models of success is like the way that person celebrates after winning a big title, the way they go straight on social media, the way other people are talking about them in this way. And it's such a hard concept to wrestle with. And I suppose you said like some people, sorry, go for it.
Sorry about that. Sorry to interrupt. But the problem with that theory is that the core value sometimes becomes winning. So the winning is a more important core value than respecting my opponent. In another field of life, making money might be the most important core value for them. It's a value. It's what makes me climb higher in the society ladder, right? And this is why I want to make money over cheating, taking money that is not my right, or taking a point that is not mine. So with that theory, it's so hard to get to an athlete and tell him that winning should not be on top of your priority list. There is respect and then winning. Then why am I in it? It's a very, as you said, a very hard theory to wrestle with. And again, my parents, not that I did it right at all times at all. I've crossed the line. I've taken things that are not my right. I'm not claiming that I was an angel, and I will never be. But the intention was always to be. There is one thing between taking something that is not your right and go out and when you calm down, saying that I was not wrong. There is a huge difference. I have and I will, until my last breath, do things and take things that are not my right, because of the instinct of winning is going to override the instinct of the right core values. But when I sit back and calm down, I'll always have to say this was wrong. Always. And not necessarily right away. I might have the ego at the time to admit it, but down the line, I have to. And that's the importance of having the right people around you to tell you off honestly. Oh, yeah, but he also took something that is not his right, but he also took your money. I don't care about all that stuff. You did something wrong? Tell me I did something wrong. Let's have a fight at the time, but at least I will sleep on my bed at night, reflecting on what you said, and I will understand that you were right.
Yeah. Again, as Ali eloquently put in such a, I don't see this from my end sometimes. So listen, one or two more questions. You've been an absolute treat here.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Thank you, mate. I got to come at it from a different angle maybe, and I just go down these random.
Yes.
Winning at all costs. I'm going to keep with this thread we're doing at the moment. Little thought experiment. Say a young, talented, next generation player comes to you, says, Ali, I want you in my corner. I want you to take me through this journey, but I like the winning at all costs. That is like top of my list. How would you approach that? Would you say it's just not the right fit, or how would you give that advice to that young person who literally thinks winning at all costs is what's going to either solve every problem for them?
Okay, when I was reading one of the books or I was listening to one of the podcasts, I don't remember, they were categorizing the values into three different ones. One, that are non-negotiables. Two, is that the things that you would tell your kids, but not necessarily force it on them. The third is that you believe in, but it's not necessarily the right one, right? Let's say, whatever. For me, going up for a 7-year-old boy to come back after 10 p.m. to the house, or a teenager to come back to the house after midnight. Might be a non-negotiable for me. It might be a number 3, whatever it may be, right? So when you coach someone, it's a partnership. And the non-negotiables, you have to be aligned with. And one of them is that winning at all costs attitude. I'm not saying I'm the right one here. I believe it is the right one. So if you come with the winning at all costs attitude, we're not the right fit for each other. It's not a partnership that can work out. We're going to be on different tracks. I'm going to be telling you something. Some with the other values, we might be thinking the same way, but a little further from each other. And then we're going to converge we're going to find a compromise. But if we're on different tracks, we're never going to meet each other, right? If they come, I'll say this is not the right partnership for that reason. And as a brotherly advice, if I can give, if they ask for the advice, it's going to get you nowhere. You're going to be the most successful in terms of winning, maybe, but you're going to feel very hollow, and you're going to be chasing the horizon at all times. You're going to be feeling that I want to be winning more because this is my identity. What happens if you lose? If winning is the main value, right? What happens? Is your identity fractured? Is it completely gone? It's very hollow. It's a very dark place to be in. And I don't wish it on my kids, and I never wished it on myself. Even when I crossed the line, I knew I felt very hollow.
And it leads me to one of again, this is a big question to wrestle with, and we might not go super down this rabbit hole, but expectations are such a thing, isn't it? And I heard a great quote the other day that high expectations can lead to misery, but high aspirations can lead to excellence. And I just thought it was a beautiful way the guy did it, because we do expect a lot of ourselves. I'm sure you did. You stepped on court, but how did you handle expectations, whether they came from self-imposed expectations or society or other people's expectations on you, maybe especially when you were right at the top of your game there?
Look, I understand the quote, and I understand people that say you shouldn't have expectations, but I think it's impossible. It's impossible not to have expectations. But what I try to channel my expectations towards are performance and attitude expectations rather than results expectations. Yes, I did set goals before every season. A goal is an expectation, right? If you set a goal to become top 50 by the end of this season, then it's an expectation to be there. And if you don't achieve it, then you feel like you're a failure, right? So I did put tangible goals and results expectations, but those are for me to keep me motivated. And I had an ultimate goal of becoming world number 1, and I had to take it step by step and break into the top 100 and then top 50 and then top 30 and so on. So as not to lose faith, because it takes such a long time to get to world number 1. If you ever get to, you're not going to, as I said, you're not going to start the career today and within 2 months, you're going to be world number 1. So you might lose faith if you only focus on the ultimate goal. So you break it down into baby goals. But when it comes to everyday focus, it was a performance and attitude expectation. I expect of myself today to give my best. I expect of myself today to play in that kind of way. I expect of myself today to move that way. So again, back to the idea of focusing on the performances to take away the thought of the result expectation is the main way to go around it. But to just say, I'm not going to have expectations is impossible. Don't think of the pink elephant. We're always going to think of the pink elephant first thing. So to not have an expectation is an expectation. It's for me, rather than thinking about the results, I would think about performance. And that's how I went around the expectations. Again, theoretically, in reality, when I was coming up the ranks and I was getting close to world number 1, I had nothing but expectations. And every call between myself and Kareem Darwish would be, Kareem, I won that tournament. Now I'm this number of points closer to Shorbagy. I'm going to get there. He would not hang up the phone call, but Ali, this is not what our focus is, to play better the next tournament. You know what I mean? It's that change in mindset. And that's why I was very lucky to have Kareem in my corner for many reasons, but that's one of the big reasons. So expectations are always going to be a part of your life, but it's what type of expectations you think of.
Yeah, I suppose you've just done a real good job at saying how you either manage or refocus on them. But just to pull on that thread a tiny bit more, do you remember any instances, you might have even just said it, where expectations became like a massive burden, whether it be in the moment or overthinking when you're match ball up? And where did expectations bite you in the ass, basically?
The biggest one I can think of now is Gawad in Black Ball in 2018. The exact same season I just mentioned. I had just came off the win in Qatar, and maybe 2018, what else did I win? I don't remember the exact series of tournaments that I played, but I was getting very close to Shorbagy. And then Black Ball was coming on, and Shorbagy ended up losing to Gawad in the quarters. And the nerd I am, I have my Excel sheet, I have my calculations. If I win this tournament, I'm the world number one for the very first time. I play I had won my quarterfinal match already, so I had 2 more matches to win. I had Paul in the following day. I beat Paul. Nobody ever noticed except for my wife. I was in tears, and I very rarely cry. I can count on one hand the number of times I cried in the past 10 years. I cried out of nerves, out of expectations. It was at home. I was going to become world number one for the very first time in front of my parents. It's a dream setup. I step on court the following day against Gawad. Gawad is Gawad. And at this point, especially in my career, he was my biggest nightmare. Shorbagy has always been my biggest nightmare because of his mental strength, but pure squash, Gawad was a nightmare for me. But he'd had 2 very tough matches in the quarters and the semis. And if I played better than I did on that day, I would have won. Not because I was better than him, but because, as I told you, he was fatigued from his previous matches. I capitulated. I couldn't. But the expectations were a lot bigger than me. The occasion was a lot bigger than me. And I had, again, this is all ego. It's your social status within the society, basically. I had very far relatives coming to watch because they knew the occasion and they were there and they had the banners and they were waiting for me to become world number one. It got the better of me. And I was not angry with myself. I'm a very bad loser. It takes me a while to get out of a loss, especially before having kids. And on that day, there was a shop next door, seafood restaurant next door. I went out with my friends literally right after the prize ceremony because I knew it was a lot bigger than me. And there is no way I was going to get over it without going through it at least once. And thankfully, a month later, I was able to deal with the situation better against Shorbagy in the TOC final.
Just take us there. So you had that real tough experience. Did you literally learn within a month? Did you process it that quickly? Did you say deal with it better against Shorbagy?
Again, it's part of the scripting, right? I spent another month scripting that I'm Ali Farag. I'm the husband. I wasn't the father at the time. I'm the son. I'm the servant. And this is not going to change if I don't become world number one. Every single day. It's not going to change. It doesn't fade away. You always have that obsession of becoming world number one, but it tames it a little bit. It makes you a little bit less desperate. And because you've been through such a big occasion and you already didn't get it, then how much worse can it get? And I didn't play badly at all the first game against Shorbagy, but Shorbagy was Shorbagy. He ended up winning it. And for so many times throughout my career, I played very well and I ended up losing because he's Muhammad. The second, not so well. And then the third, I was 6-2 down. And you know, that attitude of, I never had that attitude in that match of, okay, let's go for it. And I've lost already. But there is a bit of me that loosened up a little bit. My shoulders went a little looser and I went for my shots and I sniffed in him that he was getting a little tired and the momentum changed. And from that point on, I kicked on. But yes, I definitely did learn from the month before. Not a drastic change, but the growth is never radical. There is one of my may so rest in peace. One of my mom's partners that founded the company with her. He was a slightly shorter man, and he had such a nice anecdote that he always started his trainings with. So he would say, "Does anyone know when we grow taller?" No. And no, everyone answers. They try to come up with answers, but the real answer is no. It's bits by bits until you realize all of a sudden He said, of course, I'm not the one who's going to tell you how because of my stature, which was obviously very funny. But that's exactly what happens with growth, with character growth. You can't put your hand on one situation. In this situation, I've grown tenfold. It doesn't happen that way. It's bit by bit until all of a sudden you realize I'm a much more mature and I'm a wiser person.
Did beat Shabaghi there? Did the emotions flood you immediately? Did it take to process the world number one? How did that little bit go in your life?
Probably, I was in tears. Again, I don't cry much, but again, it was tears of joy, tears of relief, lots of pressure, lots of expectations. As you said, as hard as you try to run away from them and try to tame them in the right way, lots of expectations. And I was crying in my wife's hug publicly, which was very embarrassing. But it was a funny story. I was still serving in the army at the time. I had served in the army and I was a soldier on call. So they can always call you back for a 2-week camp. And they had called me or knocked on my door basically at home and asked to show up for a 2-week camp the following month, which was going to be during the World Championships. So my dad hadn't broken the news during the event because he knew how important the event was, but he couldn't not tell me because I was going to fly the following morning and he wanted to see if I was going to stay for the World Champs in Chicago for a month or come back. So he had to break the news 15 minutes in. So the whole emotion shifted at the time. And to be honest, it was a good shift because otherwise I would have lived in a lot of celebration mode and not get ready for the World Champs. So probably it was for the best.
Wow, that is such an incredible bit of time.
I know.
That the universe does these things.
I know, exactly.
So Ali, it would be remiss of me not to ask my final question. What does the next short to medium term chapter of your life look like? I'm sure a lot of people are interested. What does it look like for you?
I don't have an answer. If there is one answer to it, it's learning. I'm very curious to learn about other things, meaning business pretty much, because I've learned a lot from squash and I'm very grateful, but the learnings within the squash has become more and more slim. I'm learning big time with the journey with Youssef. I'm learning from him. I was just talking to Karim Darwish this morning, actually, and I told them, Youssef is very inspiring to me because I was not as open to learning as he is now. And I love it. Probably my favorite book is called The Art of Learning. And it's so pretty much about this guy who was a phenomenon in chess when he was younger and he became a national champion, maybe world champion, I don't remember. And then at the age of 20, he switched to a martial art and he became again a national champion. And he said, I was never good at chess. I was never good at this martial art. I was good at the art of learning. I was always open to better myself. And Youssef is that guy. So I'm learning from him every single day. So that's me on the squash side, working with Youssef. I'm trying to be helping with the federation a little bit to get funding for the senior players here in Egypt. And then I'm figuring out the business side. There are a lot of options. Again, something I'm very blessed with. We have the family business that my brother and my cousin are running. And then either I'll root out of this or do something completely different. The two main ones that I'm studying at the moment are in the hospitality industry and the agriculture industry. And I'm very excited about both. And let's see where that takes us, but very excited for the next chapter.
Oh, amazing. Listen,
Yes.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but it is cattle. And I grew up on a cattle farm,
Yes.
like to milk the cows
Yes.
in Africa. So when I heard that, I was like, you know what,
Yes.
part of things I might look
Yes.
at the side of things again. But
Absolutely.
I'm
Yes.
sure with the self-awareness, the identity, all of the stuff you've put behind one chapter of your career or a couple of chapters, juniors, college, professional squash, I can only see amazing things. And I'm going to be watching closely. I can't wait to see what's going to transpire for you as a husband, a father of 2 beautiful children, I can imagine. And maybe squash, maybe not squash, that'll take them into that direction. But Ali Farag, you absolute treat. I've just absorbed. I've loved this. We haven't even spoken about even world titles and that. I don't even think that was the important part of the conversation because I think the routes we took were really beautiful. So thank you so much for your knowledge, eloquence, time, effort, energy today. It's been an absolute treat.
Thank you. It's been a treat, as you said. This is the best way to put it. I've loved it. It passed by like a breeze. I've learned a lot. And every time, obviously, I've learned from you a lot more than I've learned from myself this talk. But every time you speak about your journey, about the things that I learn about myself more and more. I learn about my identity even more. So thank you for letting me do this. And I'm very much look forward to having conversations away from podcasts, but when I see you, hopefully at tournaments at some point.
Amazing. Thank you. Have a
Brilliant.
beautiful rest of your day. Say hi
Thank you.
to
You
family.
too.
We'll go
You
from there.
too. Thank you very much, man. Thank you. Have a good one. Have a good one. Bye.